To debate about so many disruptive ideas, Beatrys Fernandes will join with this conversation. Bia has a PhD from Cornell University, experience in helping private and public organizations understanding technology, digital culture, and emerging trends through research, education, and strategy. Welcome aboard, Beatrys.
And just a thing, I'm still working towards my PhD, but hopefully in a few years we will have it.
Right.
And, but yeah, so I also want to call in Francisco Santolo. So Francisco, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, real pleasure to be here. I'm not sure if you're listening. Great then. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Francisco Santolo. I'm an economist, and then I've had a career as a corporate employee linked to marketing and planning, commercial planning. But then I became an entrepreneur 6 years ago. I founded Scalabl, and since then we've grown very quickly, and we've been helping entrepreneurs, business people, and big corporations all over the world to innovate, to create new companies, and transform the world, create disruption, and avoid it. So it's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, so we have this amazing table with all these great minds. I will connect a little bit with the content from Itai, because I think there's a lot of things we could discuss. But when we talk about this work that we do about imagine and constructing new futures, especially when we are thinking about bringing disruption or change, we are still, like Itai showed us, like immersed in traditions, in structures, in powers, in privilege that sometimes we even hold, right? So how do you think we can kind of like break these biases or unveil the own narratives that we are immersed in? What do you think about that?
Is the question for me?
I think both. We can okay. Start maybe with either.
Let's go, Itai.
Maybe Francisco can start. Oh no, sorry.
As you prefer. What I thought when you did the question was directly I linked it to fear. What I really perceive continuously when I face the challenge of helping people all over the world, even big executives or very successful entrepreneurs or people who are driving change in the world, is we all human beings are totally diverse. And this will bring this quantum anarchy in a way, because everyone will be more powerful and will take more decisions, and it's not a centralized decision making. Everyone is influencing the world, and every action is more and more important. But in a sense, the important thing is this idea of building together and this idea of knowing where this will go. So in a sense, what I feel is in this world where everyone is more powerful, what I see as a common thread within that diversity, it's a lot of fear and a lot of similarities between human beings. We're all acting in the end, no matter who we are, no matter where we are, depending on our fears, depending on our need of love, depending on our need of acceptance, depending on a lot of things. We're very dependent on how others look at us. We're very dependent on what's the right thing to do. We were trained in a world where there was right or wrong. And that concept is now disguised. It's not easy to understand what's right or wrong. No one will tell us. We were trained to obey, to work, to have a Taylorist approach to productivity. And we come now to a world from 1 minute to the other in a very quick pace, in which we need to take our own decisions. We need to be different than the rest and not equal as before. We need to decide how the future is gonna look like. And if we take this decision or we don't take it, we are even though choosing how the world will be. So in a sense, this idea of why it's not happening, it's because it's completely new to us. It's absolutely new to us. And by training entrepreneurs, I know that the tools I need to teach people to be able to have the self-knowledge and the knowledge of what's coming and start taking their own decisions and start deciding by themselves and are completely different than the ones we were taught to be successful in our careers, in our corporations, in our personal lives. So it's a huge challenge, and we need to start to unlearn and learn everything again. Thanks.
Great answer. Itai, do you want to unmute yourself and tell us a little bit? Just don't forget to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's not fair. I don't like to mute myself. It's not my type. No, Francisco, you have so many rights in so many areas. I mean, well, I can say a few things. First of all, I think we should have a fear school, or fear should be part of every school since kindergarten, even before kindergarten. It's how do we, and maybe we should rebrand fear. Maybe we should, fear is such a phonetically wrong word. Maybe we should deconstruct fear and treat it again so we can all grow into the many facets of fear and see that fear can be a good thing as well. Fear is alert. Fear can raise our senses to a level of totally wonderful kind of action level. So fear is good if you use it well. But fear now is being branded very badly. So maybe we should reconstruct and deconstruct the word fear from early age. But who can do it? Families cannot do it themselves. Schools are not built to it. Extracurricular schools maybe, but it can be done. I don't know exactly now. It's, you know, you gave me maybe a different project now. Maybe it should be a global project, but it should be done because it's there to start this age. When you talk to entrepreneurs or even managers, CEOs, board members, chairmen, they are full of fears. They don't even hide it. They don't hide it in a way that they branded it for themselves. It's not fear. It's a conservative look at the economic market in order to make success so it will benefit all the shareholders, not you motherfuckers downstairs that are waiting for trickle down. No trickle down for you today. So, but what I mean is, without cynicism or with cynicism, is the thing is that you're talking about. If we're talking about not leaving the people that are fearing today and they are dealing in their daily life with this new normal, they cannot do it alone. They cannot sit with themselves in the balcony or with their wife or with whatever, or the wife with another friend or some kind of beloved ones and think about how do we adapt. They have to they have to be open to other units of society to think together. There should be more gathering. I think you cannot do it by yourself. It has to be some kind of form of gathering or some kind of experience. By the way, as we know, as we learn, a very important rule in embracing a new behavior is by experiencing a new behavior. You cannot do or act differently unless you experienced it yourself. You cannot understand just by knowing, just by reading, just by listening to someone. You have to experiment it yourself. You have to experience it yourself. Then you will understand the new behavior. So how we have to enable city places where people can experience what is to adapt and to respond to different kind of situations. It has to be municipality level, country level, NGO level, you know, not family level, not neighborhood level.
We should even maybe thinking about more this cultural level of change, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yes, it's interesting to see how we have this culture that privileges so much not being wrong, like you both said, or not seeing your own failures, or your own weaknesses, because we all have, right? And especially when we are talking about our own biases, our own history, sometimes the first step is to recognize, right? When we talk to other people, have contact with other cultures and different people from different spaces, to look at this and to recognize that as a strength also, not as sometimes a weakness. I think it's something that's very important for us to think. But I want to shift a little bit to the topic about another interesting thing that you guys touched upon, and we talk about a lot about like this technological solutionism, or even like technological chauvinism, because sometimes we see a lot of cool examples of new tech coming in and services. I like there's this researcher called Mary Broussard. She even talks about like, oh, this is the belief that technology is always the solution, right? We have this like mainstream belief. So I really would like to hear from you, like, given these very technological driven narratives and these words that we have, like all these investments pouring in these new companies, in these startups, a lot of exciting things. But at the same time, I would like to hear from, what do you believe it's true innovation, let's say like true disruption, and what do you understand as agents of change? Maybe if I could frame like this my question. Francisco, if you want to start us off. You are muted also.
Yes, of course. I believe there's a huge disconnect between investments and real innovation. This can sound a little bit provocative, but in a sense, innovation is about making things happen. It's about changing things. It's about bringing new solutions to old problems. It's about solving things in a better way. And this idea that links technology and innovation is very favorable to the intermediaries that are trying to fund projects and make money like the founding source of success. In reality, projects get successful because consumers adopt them, not because they get rounds or raise rounds of money. And in this sense, we need to understand what innovation is. And innovation has the ideation part and has the invention part, which could have the technology there. But really, innovation is about making things happen. It's about using this invention part, but then putting it into the hands of the customers. Putting it into the hands of the customers implies a strategy, business model, channels, how to get there, how to sell, how to communicate, how to make the company successful, how to make the finances of the company work. There's a whole bunch of things you need to do to get there. So technical innovations throughout history, even the ones who had been the better ones, they not always succeeded. The technology that succeeds is the one that gets implemented, the one that becomes easier for the customers, the one that solves the things in a simpler way. So around the world, I've been working with business people and entrepreneurs, and usually the most successful ventures, not measured by the amount of rounds and money they raise, but measured by the real success, profitability, sales, customers that are with satisfaction with the products, whatever, are the most simple ones. And what I come to the conclusion is technology is just a leverage for solving a problem.
Yes.
Today, we have different evolution for technology, and we have this curve of evolution of exponential technologies. It's fantastic. If you search online, you can search for the Gardner curve. The Gardner curve shows that you have always a peak of inflated expectations, and then you have a valley of disillusion, and then just over time, these technologies start working. Every VC is investing on these technologies very early, even before the peak of inflated expectations. And these same VCs are trying to exit the companies before the valley of disillusion, which means the companies explode the moment they leave. They win the money, they escalate, they scale, and then they disappear. And the companies don't generate any value for society in majority of the cases. So there's a huge confusion on this topic because there's a huge interest behind it to confuse Many people are winning money with this confusion, and a lot of money is being invested in the wrong way, not adding value to society. So just to summarize and to add a little last concept is, disruption is just when the technology is good enough, and this is way behind this is way later in the Gartner curve, to be able to produce something that can replace an incumbent's product that is leader in the market and take the incumbent out of the market with this new technology. For that to happen, there's a lot of work to be done. You can't start a company by going to the massive markets as we see do. You start with a niche, you build on the technology, you build on the network, you build on the process, and it takes time to be really disruptive and to be innovative in the way they suppose they want to do. What they're doing is like a Ponzi scheme in which they add money and money and money and money, and the ones who are purchasing every round are the same ones. It's like if I were investing in my capital and putting money and saying my valuation is higher because I invest more every time. No, I'm just adding capital. Adding capital to your own company is not good necessarily.
To very few people.
Yep. So that's my opinion.
What do you think, Itai?
Oh, I think I completely agree with Francisco, and as he saw in all the adventures that he took with entrepreneurs and companies, I can see it everywhere, because something that knocks in your face every morning. I think a good disruption, I don't like the word disruption actually, because there's not really disruptions, but innovation, if it doesn't benefit a bigger number of stakeholders, more group of stakeholders, or the more groups of stakeholders the innovation benefits, then for me it's a good innovation. If it progresses humanity, but you cannot say humanity or society. What is society? Society is the group of stakeholders around something. It can be a city, it can be a religion, it can be a company. It's the employees, it's the suppliers, it's the managers, it's the board people, it's the society around them, it's novice people or people that are being influenced by this innovation. If it's medical, for example, do you progress them? Do you benefit them? Do you bring them something that will make their life more equitable, valuable, better? Will you give them tools that they can themselves, as agency, as self, can progress themselves by themselves? Did you help them walk? Not just gave them a stick, not just gave them a carrot on a stick and walk them to a better place. Did you give them the power to walk to a better place? This is what innovation is to me, because it's all about humanity, and technology, in the favor of technology, is for me insanity. I mean, technology is a supporting element. That's it. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else. And the narrower the group of people that benefit from it, the worse innovation it is. Open, more. We're living in a planet. We vouch for everyone. If we don't understand the accountability of innovation, we shouldn't deal with it. Then there's something wrong. Then morality comes in.
Yeah, one thing that you talked about, Itai, that I think it's very important for us to point out is this idea of there is no society, right? Because sometimes we talk about in this totalizing terms, like encompassing, like there is this one human, and we don't think about specific groups that have completely different needs, completely different viewpoints and problems, and sometimes even solutions, right? And also, Francisco, about what you're talking about, how depending on the company and in the structure that we are in, the innovations themselves and how the investments are done, sometimes it's not the innovation is truly good, right? But it's because the market itself feeds into it, saying like, no, this is a good thing, this deserves more investments. But for whom, right? sometimes the answer is just for the people themselves that are investing in creating that, instead of the groups that they are saying that they would be impacting or changing the lives. Itai.
When you're saying the market or society, what do you mean the market invest? It's a very syndicate, it's a very few people, very specific syndicate of people that invest. It's not the market or society in plural. It's not like a poetic word, you know. It's a very specific place, people in a very specific game. That's it. It's a game.
It's very funny because it's like this, but it's society which pays the price. Because these things finish in an IPO, and when these companies go bankrupt, they are in the pension funds of the regular people, as it happened in 2001, 2008, and in every crisis with a Ponzi scheme we've seen before. The thing here is liquidity is so high from 1 minute to the other because of coronavirus. United States prints $3 trillion, and every government continues doing the same thing, that with so much liquidity, venture capital is not even being funded by investors anymore. It's not anymore a marketplace. It's debt. They get 0 rate debt, and then they play the game that they know how to do business and do Ponzi scheme with the rounds. It's unbelievable. No one is realizing this.
This is why I call it
7 years, and WeWork went down. Uber got saved because of the delivery thing for food because of coronavirus, but it didn't have any sense. And I can mention the majority of the companies we are praising, they don't have any business sense. They are just being subsidized by money that doesn't sustain itself over time. Those companies can continue scaling forever or go bankrupt.
This is why I'm saying we should reclaim our future. This is why I call my presentation. We should reclaim, these people are dealing with our futures.
Yes, of course.
Pension fund is our futures. So we should reclaim our futures. I cannot say it in any clear way.
A minute before when you said scaling, I was talking about the rounds, no? Not really scaling, because this figure of scaling is amazing. This figure of scaling is the KPI that the venture capitalists choose in each company, in each case, that you can manipulate with money. So when you show it grows, you tell investors they need to put money again. But in a sense, what is scaling? Let them define for you what is scaling, and they will say something different in each of their companies. There's nothing called scaling. Why would you want to scale a failure? Why would you want to scale a losing company, a losing money company? Doesn't make any sense.
It's interesting because you talked about the clients that you dealt and the people that you deal. And one thing that I always ask my clients, or I try to talk to them, like to ask themselves, that it's for whom, for really, because this realization of understanding and sometimes even admitting to yourself, like, okay, I am part of something that's not gonna truly benefit the people that I am saying that I'm gonna benefit. And if we are thinking about this long-term thinking that we are talking about, if I talked about a little bit about education, Francisco about how it takes time. So I think maybe as our last thought, I would like us to think a little bit, what would you tell, for example, for the next generations of emerging people thinking about the future, or so for these youngsters that are coming in? I know that, like we said, there are different perspectives for different groups and different problems, but if you had to have a take on what would you say to the next generations that they would need to pay attention to and maybe works towards?
In a sense, this is what I do for life, for living. I decided to make it my purpose, and what I try to bring the future generations and also everyone who's living, who's alive right now, is the first thing is linked to, the future is linked to relationships. The future is linked to genuine relationships, to community. It will be horizontal, not hierarchical, not vertical. Whatever you do every day with other people, if you give first, if you support, if you offer yourself and your talent and your resources to collaborate, you're winning the future in a sense. That's what the future looks like, and you need to start building your networks in a healthy way, but not with a transactional approach, but a really relating approach, and that's one thing. The other thing is, learning is the key for the future. It's about continuous learning, and it's about knowing that there's no truth, and no one has the truth, and no one can tell you your value. No one can tell you what will work. It's all about experimentation, like Itai was saying. So it's about continuously learning, knowing how to unlearn, keeping those semi-truths in the air till you change them, and trying to build powerful narratives and powerful truths. We, as human beings, we act and suffer and feel and live. Our experience depends completely on the stories and the narratives we build as a community and we build by ourselves. We are tortured by the stories we tell ourselves about the world, about us. We put ourselves as victims, and we need to be protagonists. There's a book called The Obstacle is the Way, linked to Stoicism. And it's like that. Whatever happens in life, the external things are the greatest opportunity ever to learn and become better, to be flexible. We need to be flexible for the future. We need to be able to transform ourselves and adapt and help each other. We can't do anything alone anymore. So I think it's this continuous learning, this learning from everyone, this relating with people, building things together, thinking and joining as a community and joining communities. And also another thing is, it's a world of abundance. And it's important what we do, because everything we do multiplies itself. We're more powerful than ever before. If we smile, we're generating a butterfly effect. If we swear, we're doing the same thing. And if we hurt someone, that comes back. And if we help someone, it comes back multiplied. So that's what we practice at Scalabl. We're 1,500 entrepreneurs and business people all over the world, and we collaborate horizontally, and it's impressive what we achieve. We achieve everything in a very simple way compared to the scale you had to go through before, getting a new position every 2-3 years, struggling to get to your money, then getting something with money as an intermediary thing. You need to go directly to your purpose. Don't lose time building for the future in how they tell you to do. Go out of the system, hack the system in a nice way. Take care of the rest of the people, but build your own path. That's what I would like to share. And don't be afraid. The only way of not being afraid is daring and doing things and failing and bumping yourself into things and suffering a little bit. Suffering is not accepting. When you suffer, you're trying to manipulate life. Life behaves as it behaves. You just need to get the obstacle, adapt, and be the best version of yourself. You can't change what life brings to you. You can influence it. And the best way is to try new things, accept, but never let yourself be there lying down, crying or whatever. Something that Itai said that is fantastic is our emotions are useful. Our emotions are signals. They're giving us valuable information. They're not there for me to cry and try to see if that helps somehow. It doesn't help. I'm not reading my emotion. And every emotion is super important.
How can I continue such a wonderful speech, Francisco? No, seriously.
You're amazing. I'm inspired by you. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, my brother. Really, you said so many wonderful stuff. I will add to it that I really believe in imagination. I really believe in this free power. One of the only free powers that we all have. It should start. It should not stop, because every child, every baby, imagine, and we should not stop ever. And we should, again, deal with it as an asset, as a not a commodity, but as a value thing that should be nurtured completely. and do it together, as you said. The idea of society, the idea of the greater society. I really believe in imagination can empower fear. I think imagination and fear can live together. I think fear should be learned. Again, I'm saying things that I said before, but fear should be dealt in every possible way. I see the rise of the coaching platform, and in the beginning I was a bit skeptic about it, but I think in this area everybody needs that. Everybody needs to talk to someone, and I like this kind of coaching and therapy online groups that get together, and you can, for a fraction of price, you can get somebody to talk to you and relax your fear. But I'm looking for the next kind of progress which will actually deal with fear. And at the minute I cannot even imagine it, but if we can build some kind of machine that deals with fear and helps us go through it, like in the army I was being taught to deal with my fear and turn it into a positive, well, positive is definitely not the right word, but into actionable power, and to take away what stops me and what can cause me to, because of the fear, to create damage, maybe because when people feel they might create damage. So studying fear and studying love and studying imagination. Sorry?
I'm thinking out loud because this idea of fear, everything transcendental or anything that is fundamental that we do in our lives has to do with everything you're talking about. It has to do with being able to let fear aside and do what you're doing. Fear is linked to desire. Fear is linked to the thing we have, the more inner thing we have. I think the best thing we have as human beings to differentiate ourselves from machines is fear.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not good if you're going to a war to face machines, but it's a wonderful thing in the human experience.
Yes.
When you go through fear and learn, I think it's the best mechanism we have to be able to learn. Because in the end, life doesn't allow us to, life will continue torturing us with the same situations once and again till we learn. And in the meantime, we will have fear and we will suffer if we don't face it.
And I think fear can be dealt with wonderfully by living in or experimenting all kinds of groups of people, all kinds of entangling, all kinds of people, a variety of people, understanding and accepting that the other thing next to fear is what we call empathy. Empathy is containing the other one, containing his right to be an agency, to be someone, containing his right or allowing, from my side, the right for him to be him. So by that, I can confront my fear with his fear, and together we can create a wonderful, wonderful collision between fears that can turn into a wonderful empathy, that can turn into a wonderful experiment. And this wonderful experiment can turn into wonderful innovation, or even a new society, or another new form of living, based a new, I always say something, a new awakened living. What I call I know awaken is a cliche word, but what I mean by awaken is not taking ayahuasca or taking a psilocybin or some kind of a mushroom or a drug. You can do that, and it's wonderful by its own. But what I mean is we need to walk towards the future. In philosophy, we say that we are being thrown into the future and our face backwards. We only judge the future by the past, and experimenting and meeting other people and empathizing other people is watching forward, is looking into the future, facing it. And facing the future is very frightening. So this is everything is all about. It's about that. It's about the scale between fear, empathy, imagination, experimentation, prototyping, creating a new form of living, going together, togetherness, wholesome, wholesome, and allowing the other one to be a whole in my whole, in our whole. If we are a neighborhood and we are a whole, what we call a society, some kind of a whole within another whole, then a new guy comes, he is another whole. So we should
Itai,
treat it as a whole. Yeah.
I think your phrase reminds me a phrase by Web du Bois that talks like, oh, I insist that the objective of all true education is not to make people carpenters, it's to make carpenters people, right?
Yes.
So I think we need to think about this and to create, like, not to make this liberatory and radical education. Thank you so much, guys. Our time is over. So
Let's
it
rehumanize
was
the
a
world.
pleasure to talk to you.
Only a
Let's
final
humanize the world.
Yes, you know, Itai was saying that the future, facing the future, is frightening. But linked to what we were saying before, that where I am is where fear lives. I mean, I'm trapped in fear, and I believe that if I do something, something will go wrong. The thing is, if I don't do something, something is going wrong, and I'm having that fear, and I'm feeling bad. So let's humanize the future. I agree. It's an H to H. Taking Itai's words, word that's coming.
We need the fear fighters unit.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
So much, Itai, Bia, and Francisco, for such an incredibly rich content. I think there is a lot for us to think about. So let's all embrace our emotions, reorganize the world, and move on.